The humble farmer and the luxury store encounter. The bustling city streets of Los Angeles were alive with the usual rhythm of life. Honking cars, hurried footsteps, and the endless chatter of people from all walks of life. Amidst this chaos stood Mary Ellis, an elderly farmer in her late 60s. Mary was no stranger to hard work. For decades, she had cultivated her small farm in the countryside, growing organic produce that nourished her local community. Her hands bore the calluses of labor, and her face carried the lines of wisdom. Yet her spirit was as bright as the morning sun. On this particular day, Mary had ventured into the heart of the city, a rare trip for her. Dressed in her simple plaid shirt, faded jeans, and well-worn boots, she carried a sturdy bag slung over her shoulder. It was filled with the proceeds of her latest harvest, carefully saved over months. Her mission was clear. She wanted to buy a special gift for her granddaughter, Clara, who had just been accepted into a prestigious university. Mary's journey led her to Elysian Luxe, a high-end boutique known for its extravagant items and snooty clientele. The boutique was a place Mary had only heard about in passing, a store where the elite shopped, where the price tags often exceeded the average person's monthly income. But Mary wasn't intimidated. Her granddaughter's success was worth every penny she had saved. As Mary stepped into the boutique, she was immediately met with a stark contrast. The interior gleamed with polished marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and racks of designer clothes that seemed more like artwork than attire. The air smelled faintly of expensive perfume, and soft classical music played in the background. Mary stood out like a wildflower in a bed of roses. The receptionist, a young woman named Vivian, took one look at Mary and sneered. Vivian had worked at Elysian Luxe for 3 years and had developed a sharp eye for distinguishing real customers from those she deemed unworthy. To her, Mary was clearly in the latter category. "Can I help you?" Vivian's voice dripped with disdain, her manicured fingers tapping impatiently on the glass counter. "Yes," Mary replied with a warm smile. "I'm looking for something special. A necklace for my granddaughter. She's the first in our family to go to university, and I want her to have something to remember this moment." Vivian rolled her eyes, barely masking her contempt. "Our items are expensive. Perhaps you should try somewhere else." Mary, unfazed by the rudeness, pulled out her bag and gently placed it on the counter. Inside was an envelope stuffed with cash, her hard-earned savings. "I've got enough," she said simply. The sight of the cash didn't soften Vivian's attitude. If anything, it made her more dismissive. "I'll get someone to assist you," she said, her tone flat. As Mary browsed the displays, her eyes sparkled with wonder. She admired the delicate craftsmanship of the jewelry, each piece shimmering under the boutique's soft lighting. Finally, she spotted a modest yet elegant silver necklace with a small emerald pendant, the perfect gift for Clara. Before Mary could call for assistance, Vivian returned with another employee, a tall, stern man named Charles. He had overheard their earlier exchange and decided to intervene, believing Vivian's assessment of Mary. "This necklace is $3,500, Charles said, pointing to the piece Mary had chosen. "Are you sure you can afford it?" Mary nodded, her smile unwavering. "Yes, I'd like to buy it." But Charles wasn't convinced. "We don't allow cash transactions for high-value items. You'll need a credit card," he lied, knowing full well the store accepted cash. Mary's expression faltered for a moment. "I don't have a credit card. Can't you make an exception?" Vivian and Charles exchanged a smug glance. "I'm sorry," Charles said, feigning politeness. "Store policy." At that moment, another customer entered the boutique, unnoticed by everyone except the vigilant security cameras. It was Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood actor known for his humility and kindness. Dressed in casual attire, a leather jacket, jeans, and sneakers, he was far from the typical Elysian Luxe customer. But Keanu had a sharp eye for character, and he immediately noticed the tension between Mary and the staff. As Mary pleaded her case, Keanu watched from a distance, his heart sinking at the blatant discrimination. He saw the way Vivian rolled her eyes, the way Charles smirked, and the way Mary's shoulders sagged slightly under the weight of their treatment. Keanu had experienced his share of challenges in life, and he knew the pain of being underestimated. "I'll take this necklace," Mary said, her voice firm despite the humiliation. Charles sighed theatrically. "I'm afraid we can't hold it for you without a card." At that moment, Keanu stepped forward, his presence commanding attention without effort. "Excuse me," he said, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "I couldn't help but overhear. Is there a problem?" Charles stiffened, recognizing the actor instantly. "No problem at all, Mr. Reeves. Just assisting this customer." Keanu's gaze shifted to Mary, who looked up at him in surprise. "May I see the necklace?" he asked, his tone kind and genuine. Charles hesitated before handing it to him. Keanu examined the piece, then turned to Mary. "It's beautiful. A perfect choice. Is this for someone special?" Mary nodded, her eyes welling up with gratitude. "Yes, for my granddaughter. She's worked so hard, and I want her to know how proud I am." Keanu smiled, his warmth dispelling the cold atmosphere of the boutique. "That's a wonderful gesture. I'd like to cover the cost for you." Mary gasped. "Oh no, I couldn't accept that. I've saved up for this." Keanu placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's not about the money. It's about making sure Clara knows how much she's loved. Please, let me help." Before Mary could protest further, Keanu handed his card to Charles, who processed the transaction with a mix of awe and embarrassment. Vivian stood frozen, her face pale as she realized the gravity of her actions. Keanu handed the necklace to Mary, who held it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You've done more than you know." As Mary left the boutique, her heart full and her spirit unbroken, Keanu turned to the staff. His usual calm demeanor was replaced with quiet intensity. "You might want to reconsider how you treat people. Kindness costs nothing." With that, he walked out, leaving Charles and Vivian to grapple with their shame, Clara's dreams, and Keanu's call to action. Mary Ellis returned home to her quaint farmhouse, her heart still fluttering from the events of the day. The silver necklace with the emerald pendant was tucked safely in her bag, a tangible reminder of the kindness she had experienced from a stranger, a man she had later learned was the world-famous actor, Keanu Reeves. For Mary, the name rang a bell, but her quiet life on the farm kept her far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. To her, Keanu wasn't a celebrity. He was simply a kind soul who had shown her compassion when she needed it most. As Mary stepped into her cozy living room, she was greeted by the sight of her granddaughter, Clara, poring over a stack of textbooks. Clara, a bright and ambitious young woman of 19, had always been Mary's pride and joy. With her sharp mind and boundless curiosity, Clara had earned a full scholarship to study environmental science at a prestigious university, an achievement that brought tears to Mary's eyes every time she thought about it. "Grandma!" Clara exclaimed, her face lighting up as Mary entered. She rushed over to give her a warm hug. "How was your trip to the city?" Mary smiled, holding Clara close. "It was an adventure, my dear. But first, I have something for you." She reached into her bag and pulled out the necklace, holding it out for Clara to see. The emerald sparkled in the soft light of the room, catching Clara's breath. "Oh, Grandma, it's beautiful," Clara whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "You didn't have to do this." Mary shook her head, her voice gentle but firm. "You've worked so hard, Clara. This is a gift to remind you of how proud I am and how much I believe in you." Clara hugged her grandmother again, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you, Grandma. I'll treasure it forever." Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Keanu Reeves sat in his modest home, a sanctuary that stood in stark contrast to the luxurious lifestyle many associated with Hollywood. Despite his fame, Keanu had always chosen simplicity, valuing genuine connections and meaningful experiences over material wealth. The events at Elysian Lux lingered in his mind. Mary's resilience and humility had touched him deeply, but it was the disdainful attitude of the boutique staff that had ignited a spark within him. He couldn't shake the feeling that more needed to be done, not just for Mary, but for people like her who faced prejudice and judgment every day. Keanu reached for his phone and dialed a number. On the other end of the line was Rachel Hammond, his longtime friend and a producer with a passion for social impact projects. "Keanu," Rachel greeted warmly. "What's on your mind?" Keanu leaned back in his chair, his voice steady. "I want to do something meaningful, Rachel. Something that highlights the power of kindness and the importance of seeing people for who they are, not what they look like or where they come from." Rachel was intrigued. "That sounds like you. What do you have in mind?" Keanu recounted the story of Mary at the boutique, his words painting a vivid picture of the encounter. As he spoke, Rachel listened intently, her mind already racing with ideas. "That's a powerful story," Rachel said when he finished. "We could turn this into something bigger, a documentary, maybe, or a campaign that showcases real-life stories of kindness and resilience." Keanu nodded. "Exactly. I want to give people like Mary a voice and remind the world that everyone has a story worth hearing." Back on the farm. A few days later, Mary received a letter in the mail with a Los Angeles postmark. Confused but curious, she opened it and found a handwritten note from Keanu Reeves himself. "Dear Mary, I hope this letter finds you well. Meeting you at the boutique was a humbling experience for me. Your story reminded me of the strength and kindness that often go unnoticed in this world. I shared your story with a close friend of mine, and we'd love to invite you to participate in a project that celebrates people like you, individuals whose courage and determination inspire others. If you're interested, please give me a call. I'd be honored to hear more about your journey. Warm regards, Keanu Reeves." Mary stared at the letter, her hands trembling. She couldn't believe that someone like Keanu Reeves had taken the time to write to her, let alone invite her to be part of something so meaningful. Clara, who had been reading over her shoulder, gasped in excitement. "Grandma, this is amazing. You have to call him." Mary hesitated. "I'm just a simple farmer, Clara. What could I possibly contribute to a project like this?" Clara took her grandmother's hands in hers. "You have so much to offer, Grandma. Your story, your kindness, your resilience. It's exactly what the world needs to hear. Please, say yes." The call that changed everything. Later that evening, Mary mustered the courage to call the number Keanu had provided. Her hands shook as she dialed, and her heart raced when she heard his familiar voice on the other end. "Hello, this is Keanu." "Mr. Reeves," Mary began, her voice trembling. "This is Mary Ellis. I received your letter." Keanu's tone immediately softened. "Mary, it's so good to hear from you. Thank you for calling. How are you?" As they talked, Keanu explained his vision for the project, a series of stories that would shine a light on everyday heroes like Mary. He assured her that it wouldn't be intrusive or overwhelming, but rather a chance to share her life's wisdom and inspire others. By the end of the call, Mary agreed, her initial doubts replaced with a sense of purpose. For the first time in years, she felt like her story mattered, like her voice could make a difference. Wheels set in motion. The following weeks were a whirlwind. A small film crew, led by Rachel, arrived at Mary's farm to begin documenting her life. They captured her daily routine, milking cows at sunrise, tending to her crops, and preparing hearty meals in her rustic kitchen. They also filmed heartfelt interviews where Mary spoke about her struggles, her triumphs, and the values that had guided her through life. Clara became an integral part of the project, sharing her own perspective on her grandmother's influence. The necklace Mary had gifted her became a symbol of their bond, its emerald pendant glinting in the sunlight as Clara wore it with pride. As the project unfolded, word began to spread. Keanu used his platform to promote the series, sharing snippets of Mary's story on social media. the response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from around the world, with people expressing admiration for Mary's resilience and gratitude for the reminder that kindness could change lives. The ripple effect of kindness. Mary Ellis's once quiet and unassuming life had taken an unexpected turn. What had started as a humiliating moment at a luxury boutique turned into a life-changing opportunity, thanks to the kindness of Keanu Reeves. The film crew's arrival had brought excitement to the sleepy farm, but what came next was something neither Mary nor Clara could have anticipated. Mary's story touches the world. The documentary's first teaser, a 60-second video titled "The Farmer's Necklace," was released online. It featured snippets of Mary's life, her hands sowing seeds into the rich soil, the emerald necklace glowing softly around Clara's neck, and Mary's heartfelt voiceover saying, "Kindness grows just like crops. You nurture it, and it multiplies." The video quickly went viral. It was shared millions of times across social media platforms, with hashtags like #KindnessGrows and #MaryFarmer trending worldwide. Comments flooded in from people of all ages and backgrounds. This is the reminder we need in today's world. Thank you, Mary, for showing us what truly matters. I cried watching this. Mary is a hero in her own way. Thank you, Keanu, for amplifying her story. I'm buying an emerald necklace for my mom. She's my Mary. News outlets picked up the story, and within days, reporters were calling Mary's farmhouse. Clara acted as a buffer, shielding her grandmother from the overwhelming attention while carefully managing the requests. Keanu's mission expands. Meanwhile, Keanu Reeves was overwhelmed by the response. Sitting in a modest conference room with Rachel Hammond and the documentary team, he reviewed the feedback pouring in. "This isn't just a story about Mary," Keanu said, leaning forward. "It's a movement. People are hungry for authenticity and kindness in a world that often feels disconnected." Rachel nodded. "Agreed. But we need to be strategic about how we expand this. What's next?" Keanu's mind raced with ideas. What if we create a platform? A space where people can share their own stories of resilience, kindness, and overcoming adversity. It could be a website, a community hub. And maybe we set up a fund to support people like Mary, ordinary heroes who need a little help. Rachel's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant. We could call it the ripple effect, because kindness spreads like ripples in water." "Let's do it," Keanu said, determination in his voice. Mary's farm becomes a symbol. As the documentary project continued, Mary's farm transformed into more than just a setting. It became a symbol of resilience and humility. Visitors began arriving. Neighbors, journalists, and even fans who had seen the teaser and felt compelled to meet the woman behind the story. Some brought gifts, handmade quilts, letters of gratitude, and even packets of seeds to add to Mary's garden. Mary greeted everyone with her characteristic warmth, but she couldn't help feeling a bit overwhelmed. "I'm just a farmer," she said to Clara one evening as they sat on the porch. "I never expected any of this." Clara smiled, taking her grandmother's hand. "You're more than a farmer, Grandma. You're a teacher. You're showing the world what kindness looks like." A challenge arises. While most of the attention was positive, not everyone celebrated Mary's newfound fame. Back in the city, the boutique where the incident had occurred faced heavy backlash. Customers began boycotting Elysian Luxe, calling out their discriminatory practices online. The store's reputation plummeted, and within weeks, they issued a public apology. But not everyone was satisfied. Charles, the manager who had humiliated Mary, felt the brunt of the fallout. He was suspended from his position and became a target of online harassment. One evening, he showed up at Mary's farm unannounced, his face pale and drawn. "Mrs. Ellis," he said, his voice trembling, "I need to apologize." Mary, startled but ever gracious, invited him in. Over a cup of tea, Charles poured out his regret, explaining how the backlash had forced him to confront his own biases. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I judged you unfairly, and I've paid the price for it. But what hurts most is knowing I caused you pain." Mary looked at him with kind eyes. "We all make mistakes," she said gently. "What matters is what we do next. If you've learned from this, then something good has come of it." Charles left the farm that evening, humbled and introspective. His visit became another chapter in Mary's growing story, a testament to her ability to forgive and inspire change. Clara finds her voice. Amid the whirlwind, Clara found herself stepping into the spotlight. She began giving interviews alongside her grandmother, sharing her perspective on the lessons she had learned from Mary. One day, during a live television appearance, the host asked Clara, "What's the most important thing your grandmother has taught you?" Clara hesitated for a moment, then said, "That kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. My grandmother has faced challenges I can't even imagine, but she's never let bitterness take root. She chooses kindness, even when it's hard." The clip of Clara's response went viral, and she became an advocate in her own right. Her passion for environmental science merged with her newfound platform, and she began speaking about the importance of sustainable farming and community resilience. The ripple effect launches. With the documentary nearing completion, Keanu and Rachel launched the Ripple Effect platform. The website featured stories from people around the world who had experienced or witnessed acts of kindness that changed their lives. Mary's story was the inaugural feature, accompanied by a short video message from Keanu. "Kindness," Keanu said in the video, "is the most underrated superpower we have." Mary's story is proof that a single act of kindness can create ripples that reach far beyond what we can see. Let's keep those ripples going. The platform also included a donation fund to support individuals facing hardships. Within days, thousands of dollars poured in, and the first grants were awarded to struggling farmers, single parents, and small business owners. Mary's life changes forever. As the project gained momentum, Mary found herself at the center of a global movement. But she remained grounded, tending to her farm and spending time with Clara. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Mary reflected on how much her life had changed. "I never imagined any of this," she said softly. "All I wanted was to buy a necklace for you, Clara." Clara smiled, holding her grandmother's hand. "And that necklace started something incredible. You've shown the world that one small act can make a big difference." Seeds of transformation. The farm's dirt road felt busier than ever, though the rhythm of Mary Ellis's life remained rooted in the soil and sunrise. From the outside, it looked like the same small farm it had always been, modest fields stretching under a wide open sky. But for Mary and Clara, everything had changed. The Ripple Effect campaign had gone viral, bringing international attention to Mary's story and the lessons it embodied. Visitors arrived daily, some bringing gifts of gratitude, others seeking inspiration. But while the world saw Mary as a beacon of kindness, she remained deeply humble. "This farm isn't about me," she'd say to the visitors who called her a hero. "It's about what kindness can grow when you plant it." The farm's new role. As media attention grew, Clara began to see an opportunity. The farm, once a private place of hard work and quiet resilience, could transform into a hub for learning and connection. "Grandma," Clara began one evening as they sat on the porch, the warm glow of lanterns spilling onto the wooden floorboards, "what if we turned the farm into something bigger? We could invite people here to learn about sustainable farming and the values you've always taught me: kindness, patience, and perseverance." Mary frowned slightly, looking out over the fields. "It's a wonderful idea, Clara, but running a farm is hard enough. How could we manage all that?" Clara smiled. "We don't have to do it alone. With all the support we've been getting, we can bring in volunteers, maybe even some experts. Think of it as a way to give back, just like you always taught me." Mary's heart swelled with pride as she looked at her granddaughter. Clara wasn't just ambitious. She was thoughtful and full of heart. "If you think we can do it, Clara, then I'll support you." Keanu visits the farm. One crisp autumn morning, a familiar black motorcycle rumbled down the dirt road leading to Mary's farmhouse. Keanu Reeves, wearing his signature leather jacket and an unassuming smile, had come to visit. When he arrived, Mary greeted him with her usual warmth. "Mr. Reeves, I wasn't expecting you." "Please call me Keanu," he said, shaking her hand. "I wanted to see the farm for myself and hear how things are going. It's even more beautiful than I imagined." Keanu spent the day touring the farm with Mary and Clara. He admired the rows of crops, the sturdy barn, and the peaceful simplicity of the place. But what struck him most was the energy of the people working there. Volunteers had already begun arriving, inspired by Mary's story. They came from different backgrounds: young college students, retired professionals, even a chef who wanted to learn about organic produce. Keanu watched as Clara explained the farm's new mission to a group of volunteers, her passion shining through. "This isn't just about growing food," she said. "It's about growing connections between people, the land, and the values we all share." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Keanu sat with Mary and Clara around a small fire. The flames crackled softly as they sipped cups of herbal tea. "You've created something incredible here," Keanu said, his voice thoughtful. "The farm isn't just a place anymore. It's a symbol, and symbols have power." Mary shook her head modestly. "I'm just a farmer, Keanu. I've always been." "But you're so much more than that," he replied. "You've shown the world that kindness and hard work can make a difference, no matter how small the act." Challenges loom. Despite the positivity surrounding the farm, not everything was smooth sailing. As the Ripple Effect platform gained traction, it attracted not just supporters but also critics. Online forums buzzed with debates about whether Mary's story was being overglorified. Some questioned Keanu's involvement, accusing him of using the story for publicity. Mary, who had never cared for fame or public opinion, found herself caught in the crossfire. "I didn't ask for any of this," she confided to Clara one evening. "I just wanted to buy you that necklace." Clara squeezed her grandmother's hand. "It's okay, Grandma. People will always find something to criticize, but that doesn't take away from the good you've done." Keanu, too, faced his share of challenges. His personal inbox overflowed with messages, both supportive and critical. Some accused him of playing hero for the cameras, while others demanded he address unrelated social issues. But Keanu remained focused on the project, knowing its impact outweighed the noise. The Ripple Effect Fund. Determined to keep the movement growing, Keanu and Rachel Hammond worked tirelessly to launch the Ripple Effect Fund. The fund provided grants to individuals and small communities striving to create positive change. Applications poured in from around the globe. Farmers seeking resources to adopt sustainable practices, teachers wanting to expand their classrooms, and even individuals looking to start kindness initiatives in their neighborhoods. Mary became a key advisor for the fund, her wisdom shaping its direction. "Sometimes people just need a little help to get started," she said during one of their planning meetings. "It's not about doing the work for them. It's about giving them the tools to grow." Clara's vision takes root. As the farm's transformation continued, Clara took the lead in organizing workshops and community events. One of her first projects was a planting day, where visitors could plant seeds in designated fields and learn about sustainable farming practices. The event drew over 100 attendees, including families, environmentalists, and even a few celebrities inspired by the cause. During the event, Clara spoke to the crowd, her voice steady and confident. "My grandmother taught me that the smallest seeds can grow into the biggest trees, and the same is true for kindness. What we plant here today isn't just food, it's hope." Keanu, who had quietly attended the event, watched with pride. "She's incredible," he said to Mary as they stood on the sidelines. Mary nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "She is. She's my hope." A surprise announcement. As the farm flourished, Rachel approached Mary and Clara with an idea. "What if we host a premiere for the documentary here on the farm? It would be a way to celebrate everything you've built and share it with the world. Mary hesitated, unsure about turning her quiet home into a public spectacle. But Clara, ever the visionary, saw the potential. "Grandma, this is our chance to show people what we've done, and what they can do too." After some thought, Mary agreed. Plans were set in motion for a grand premiere under the stars, complete with an outdoor screening, local food vendors, and live music. The event quickly became one of the most anticipated gatherings of the year, with people flying in from across the globe to attend. The night of the premiere. The night of the premiere arrived with the kind of serene beauty that only Mary Ellis's farm could offer. The sprawling fields were transformed into an enchanting venue, with strings of lights hung between the trees, hay bales repurposed as seating, and long wooden tables laden with fresh produce and homemade dishes. Volunteers bustled about, making last-minute preparations as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. Mary stood on the porch of her farmhouse, watching the scene unfold with a mix of awe and trepidation. For decades, this farm had been her quiet refuge, a place of hard work and solitude. Now it was a gathering spot for hundreds of people, reporters, supporters, and even a few celebrities, all drawn to the story of a humble farmer who had inspired a global movement. Clara appeared beside her, wearing the emerald necklace that had started it all. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "It's perfect, Grandma," she said, slipping an arm around Mary's shoulder. "This night is for you." Mary smiled, though her heart was heavy with nerves. "It's not about me, Clara. It's about everyone who's been touched by kindness." A gathering of hearts. As the guests arrived, the farm came alive with laughter and conversation. Local musicians played folk tunes, their melodies blending with the soft rustle of the wind through the fields. Food stations showcased dishes made from Mary's produce, fresh salads, hearty stews, and warm apple pies that filled the air with a comforting aroma. Among the attendees was Keanu Reeves, who arrived quietly on his motorcycle, blending into the crowd with his unassuming demeanor. He greeted Mary with a warm hug. "This is incredible," he said, looking around. "You've created something truly special." "It's not just me," Mary replied. "It's everyone who believed in the message." Rachel Hammond, the producer behind the Ripple Effect documentary, soon joined them. "Mary, tonight isn't just a premiere," she said with a smile. "It's a celebration of everything you stand for." The screening. As night fell, the guests settled onto the hay bales and blankets spread across the fields. A large white screen had been set up at the edge of the farm, and a gentle hush fell over the crowd as the documentary began. The film opened with a close-up of Mary's hands, weathered and calloused from years of work, planting seeds into the soil. Her voice narrated the scene. "A seed is a small thing, but it holds so much potential. Kindness is the same. It starts small, but it can grow into something extraordinary." The documentary chronicled Mary's journey, from the humiliating encounter at the luxury boutique to the creation of the Ripple Effect movement. It featured interviews with Clara, Keanu, and even some of the volunteers who had found new purpose on the farm. The footage of Mary working the fields, sharing stories, and welcoming strangers into her home was met with sniffles and quiet applause. When the credits rolled, the audience erupted into a standing ovation. Mary, seated at the front with Clara and Keanu, felt a lump rise in her throat. She had never imagined her life would touch so many people. The unexpected visitor. As the applause died down, a figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was Vivian, the receptionist from the luxury boutique where Mary's story had begun. Dressed in a simple outfit, far removed from her usual designer attire, she looked nervous but determined. "Mrs. Ellis," Vivian began, her voice trembling. "I don't know if you remember me, but I was the receptionist at the boutique that day." Mary's eyes softened. "I remember." Vivian took a deep breath. "I came here tonight to apologize. I judged you unfairly, and I was part of a culture that prioritized appearances over people. Seeing how far your story has come has made me realize how wrong I was. I'm so sorry." The crowd watched in silence as Mary rose from her seat and approached Vivian. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Then Mary extended her arms and pulled Vivian into a hug. "Thank you for coming," Mary said softly. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. That's the first step toward change." The crowd erupted into applause once more, moved by the moment of forgiveness and reconciliation. A surprise announcement. As the night continued, Keanu took to the small stage set up near the screen. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady and heartfelt. Mary's story has shown us that kindness isn't just an idea, it's an action, and actions like hers have the power to change the world. He paused, looking out over the crowd. "Tonight, I want to announce something special. With Mary and Clara's blessing, we'll be turning this farm into a permanent center for the ripple effect movement. It will be a place where people can come to learn, grow, and be inspired to carry kindness back to their own communities." The crowd erupted into cheers, and Clara clasped her grandmother's hand, her eyes wide with excitement. "Grandma, this is incredible." Mary, overwhelmed, could only nod. She had never sought fame or recognition, but if her farm could become a source of hope and change, she was willing to embrace it. The quiet moment. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Mary found herself alone in the fields. The stars twinkled above, and the soft hum of the event faded into the background. Keanu approached, his footsteps light on the dewy grass. "Penny, for your thoughts?" he asked, standing beside her. Mary chuckled. "I was just thinking about how small this all started. A necklace for my granddaughter. That's all it was meant to be." Keanu smiled. It's funny how the smallest acts can have the biggest impact. They stood in silence for a moment, gazing out at the fields that had become a symbol of something much greater than Mary had ever imagined. Growing roots and weathering storms. The transformation of Mary Ellis's farm into the official center for the ripple effect movement was nothing short of monumental. The farm, now known as Ellis Kindness Farm, became a gathering place for dreamers, doers, and everyone in between. Its mission was simple yet profound: to nurture kindness, community, and resilience, just as Mary had done her entire life. The transition. Turning the farm into a global hub for kindness was no small feat. Clara took the reins on much of the logistics, organizing teams of volunteers and coordinating with local contractors to expand the farm's capacity. They added a learning center with classrooms, a greenhouse to showcase sustainable farming techniques, and even a meditation garden, a quiet space where visitors could reflect and recharge. Keanu Reeves, deeply invested in the project, visited frequently to lend a hand. Whether it was hauling supplies or helping build raised garden beds, he worked alongside the volunteers, proving that his commitment wasn't just for the cameras. His humility inspired everyone who came to the farm, and his presence helped draw even more attention to the movement. Despite the progress, Mary remained grounded. She still woke up before dawn to tend to the crops, her hands working the soil with the same quiet determination she'd always had. The farm might have grown, but her values hadn't changed. The first setback. The momentum of the ripple effect seemed unstoppable until the storm hit. One fateful evening, dark clouds rolled in over the farm, carrying with them a torrential downpour and winds that howled like a wild beast. The storm raged for hours, uprooting trees, flooding fields, and damaging several of the farm's new structures. By morning, the farm was almost unrecognizable. Mary stood on her porch, surveying the damage with a heavy heart. Clara joined her, her expression one of disbelief. "Grandma, this is devastating." "It's just a setback," Mary said, though her voice trembled. "We'll rebuild. We've faced worse." But the storm's impact wasn't just physical. News of the damage spread quickly, and while many supporters rallied to help, others questioned the project's sustainability. Critics emerged online, accusing the movement of being overly idealistic and unprepared for real-world challenges. Keanu arrived the day after the storm, his face etched with concern. "Mary, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help?" Mary, ever resilient, smiled. "You're already helping by being here, Keanu. We'll get through this. Kindness grows, remember." The community responds. The storm proved to be a turning point for the ripple effect. What could have been a crippling blow became a rallying cry. Volunteers and supporters from across the country descended on the farm, bringing tools, supplies, and expertise. Some were farmers who understood the challenges of rebuilding after a disaster. Others were engineers, architects, and even artists, each offering their unique skills. One volunteer, a young architect named Alina, approached Clara with an idea. "What if we use this as an opportunity to build back better? We could incorporate eco-friendly designs and make the farm even more resilient." Clara, inspired by Alina's vision, brought the idea to Mary, who nodded thoughtfully. "If we're going to rebuild, let's do it in a way that honors the land and the people who depend on it." The reconstruction effort became a community event, drawing even more attention to the farm and its mission. Videos of volunteers working together, sharing meals, and celebrating small victories went viral, reigniting interest in the movement. The unexpected ally. Amid the rebuilding process, a surprising ally emerged: Charles, the former manager of the boutique where Mary's story had begun. Since his apology, Charles had been quietly working to redeem himself, volunteering at local shelters and advocating for kindness in his own community. When Charles heard about the storm, he reached out to Clara with an offer. "I have a background in business," he said. "I'd like to help you secure funding and partnerships to keep the farm running." Clara was hesitant at first, but after consulting with Mary, she agreed to give him a chance. Charles threw himself into the work, leveraging his connections to bring in resources and sponsors. His efforts not only helped stabilize the farm's finances, but also showed that redemption was possible for those willing to change. A global movement takes shape. As the farm was rebuilt, the Ripple Effect movement expanded its reach. The newly launched Ripple Fellowship program invited individuals from around the world to spend time at Ellis Kindness Farm, learning about sustainable practices and the power of kindness. Fellows returned to their communities with the tools and inspiration to start their own initiatives, creating a ripple effect that extended far beyond the farm. One fellow, a teacher from Kenya named Amina, shared her story during a community dinner at the farm. "Where I come from, kindness is not a luxury, it's a necessity. What I've learned here will help me teach my students not just how to survive, but how to thrive." Her words resonated deeply with Mary, who later reflected, "It's amazing how far kindness can travel. I never imagined our little farm would touch lives halfway around the world." A celebration of resilience. Months after the storm, the farm was fully restored, better and more beautiful than ever. To mark the occasion, Clara and Keanu organized a celebration, a kindness festival, open to everyone who had supported the movement. The festival featured workshops on sustainable farming, panel discussions on resilience and community building, and performances by local musicians. The highlight of the event was a speech by Mary herself, who stood on a small stage under the warm glow of string lights. "Kindness is like a seed," she began, her voice steady and strong. "It doesn't always grow right away. Sometimes storms come and try to wash it away. But if you nurture it, if you believe in it, it will take root. And once it does, nothing can stop it." The crowd erupted into applause, many wiping away tears. Among them was Vivian, the former receptionist, who had become one of the farm's most dedicated volunteers. Standing beside her was Charles, whose journey of redemption had inspired many. The quiet triumph. That evening, as the festival wound down, Mary sat on the porch with Clara and Keanu, watching the fireflies dance in the fields. The farm was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet, a peaceful stillness that came from knowing they had weathered the storm and come out stronger. You know, Mary said, breaking the silence, I've always believed that the land teaches us everything we need to know about life. It's not just about planting seeds. It's about tending to them, protecting them, and having faith that they'll grow. Keanu nodded. And you've taught the world that, Mary. You've shown us what it means to truly care. Clara leaned her head on Mary's shoulder. Grandma, you've always said that kindness grows. Tonight, looking at everything we've built together, I think you're right. Mary smiled, her heart full. The storm had tested them, but it had also proven the strength of the roots they'd planted. And as the stars shone brightly overhead, she knew that the work they had started was only the beginning, a legacy that lasts forever. The sun rose over Ellis Kindness Farm, its rays spilling across the dew-kissed fields like a warm embrace. The farm, now a bustling hub for the ripple effect movement, stood as a testament to resilience, community, and the power of kindness. Visitors arrived daily to learn, contribute, and carry Mary Ellis's message back to their corners of the world. But on this particular morning, there was a sense of quiet anticipation. Today marked the unveiling of something extraordinary, something that Mary, Clara, and Keanu Reeves had worked tirelessly to bring to life. The Kindness Archive. At the heart of the farm stood a brand new building, the Kindness Archive. Designed by Elena, the architect who had helped rebuild after the storm, the structure was a marvel of sustainable design. Its walls were constructed from reclaimed wood, its roof adorned with solar panels, and its interior bathed in natural light. The archive was a place where stories of kindness from around the globe would be collected, preserved, and shared. Inside, the archive housed a gallery of photos, videos, and artifacts from the movement's journey. Interactive screens allowed visitors to explore stories of individuals who had been touched by the ripple effect, while the quiet reading room offered shelves filled with letters of gratitude sent to Mary and her team. This is more than a building, Keanu explained during the opening ceremony. It's a living testament to the idea that kindness doesn't just fade, it grows, multiplies, and leaves a legacy. Mary, standing beside him, felt a lump in her throat as she looked out at the crowd. Among them were familiar faces: Clara, her tireless partner in the movement; Charles, who had found redemption and purpose in helping others; Vivian, who had become one of the farm's most passionate advocates; and countless volunteers and supporters who had made it all possible. "Thank you," Mary said, her voice trembling with emotion. "This farm may be my home, but it belongs to all of you now. Every story, every act of kindness, is a seed planted in this archive, and I hope it will inspire future generations to keep planting their own." Clara's next step. As the Kindness Archive opened its doors to the world, Clara found herself at a crossroads. For years, she had poured her heart into the farm, working alongside her grandmother to turn their vision into reality. But now, with the farm thriving and the movement expanding, she felt a pull toward something new. One evening, Clara sat with Mary on the porch, the emerald necklace glittering softly in the moonlight. "Grandma," she began, her voice hesitant, "I've been thinking about what's next for me. The farm is in a good place, and I feel like it's time for me to take what I've learned here and bring it to other communities." Mary listened quietly, her heart swelling with pride. "Clara, you've always been meant for great things. If your path is taking you beyond this farm, then you have my blessing. Just remember, no matter where you go, this will always be home." Clara hugged her grandmother tightly. "I'll carry everything you've taught me, Grandma, and I'll make sure the world knows that kindness starts with a single act, a global summit." As the ripple effect grew, so did its reach. The farm began hosting an annual Global Kindness Summit, drawing leaders, activists, and everyday heroes from across the globe. The summit featured workshops, panel discussions, and keynote speeches, all aimed at fostering collaboration and inspiring action. Keanu, as always, played a central role in the event. During one session, he shared his thoughts on the movement's evolution. "This started with Mary's story," he said, his voice steady and reflective. But it's become so much more. It's about every person who chooses to see the humanity in others, who chooses to act with compassion, even when it's difficult. One of the most moving moments of the summit came when Amina, the teacher from Kenya, presented a video showing how she had used what she learned at the farm to transform her village. The video showed children planting trees, building sustainable gardens, and sharing meals with neighboring communities. When I came to Ellis Kindness Farm, Amina said, addressing the audience, I learned that kindness is not just about giving, it's about empowering. And now my village is thriving because of the seeds we planted together. The audience erupted into applause, and Mary, seated in the front row, wiped tears from her eyes. Amina's words were a reminder that the movement's impact reached far beyond the farm's borders. The farewell moment. As the summit concluded, Mary felt a deep sense of fulfillment, but also a quiet realization. Her role in the movement was changing. At 70 years old, she had given everything she could to the farm and the people it served. Now it was time to step back and let the next generation carry the torch. During a private dinner with Clara, Keanu, and Rachel, Mary shared her decision. I think it's time for me to take a step back, she said. The farm doesn't need me as much anymore. Clara, you've grown into a leader, and Keanu, you've helped turn this into something bigger than I ever dreamed. I'm ready to pass the reins. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Grandma, this farm will always be yours. Everything we do here is because of you. Keanu reached across the table, his hand resting gently on Mary's. You've earned this, Mary, but don't think of it as stepping away. Think of it as planting yourself somewhere new, where you can rest and let others grow around you. The legacy unfolds. Mary's retirement was a quiet affair. She moved into a small cottage on the edge of the farm, where she could still watch the fields and offer guidance when needed. Visitors still came to see her, bringing stories of how the ripple effect had touched their lives. Clara took over as the farm's director, her vision leading the movement into new territories. Under her leadership, Ellis Kindness Farm partnered with organizations around the world to establish satellite farms and learning centers, spreading the message of kindness far and wide. Keanu continued his role as an ambassador for the movement, using his platform to amplify its reach. But for him, the farm remained a grounding place, a reminder of why the work mattered. The final chapter. Years later, as Mary sat on her porch watching a new generation of volunteers working in the fields, she felt a deep sense of peace. The emerald necklace, now a cherished family heirloom, hung around her neck, a symbol of the journey that had begun with a single act of kindness. One evening, Clara joined her, carrying a small notebook filled with letters from people whose lives had been changed by the ripple effect. Together, they read stories of children who had started community gardens, refugees who had found hope in acts of generosity, and strangers who had become family through kindness. "Do you think it will last?" Clara asked, her voice soft. Mary smiled, her eyes sparkling with wisdom. "Kindness lasts forever, Clara. It grows roots deeper than any tree. And as long as there are people like you to nurture it, it will keep spreading." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the farm in a warm golden light, Mary leaned back in her chair, her heart full. The farm had become more than she ever imagined, a legacy of kindness, resilience, and hope. And as the stars began to twinkle above, she knew that the seeds she had planted would continue to grow, long after she was gone.